Today topic is product failures. What went wrong and why? And Jim Anderson is joining us from Mars. So before we go into the talk and some of the knowledge Jim has to share, a little bit about myself. So I'm a product manager with Product People. I actually started out as an associate and had the good fortune to get good guidance and help from all the people at Product People and grow into a product manager. Before that, I worked as a project manager and also within the product management office. And I worked in customer service for a while. And if you ever want to learn about your user and their pain points, I would say customer service is probably one of the best places to do it. It really taught me the value of user centricity. With Product People, I work with Emma, Omeo, the World Health Organization, and Zen Homes. And that's a little bit about myself. Then about Product People, what we do. So our mission is to help companies discover and deliver great products faster. We do that by onboarding fast, aligning teams, and delivering outcomes. On top of that, we have a community. We manage these community events along with other things, which is for us an opportunity to share knowledge and also interact with different people and get different perspectives around product. So currently we have 12,000 members and it's still growing. So we're super excited about that. And that's a little bit about me and about Product People. But now we would like to get to know you a little bit. So within a few seconds, for the ones joining us on Zoom, there will be a pop-up with a little Q&A. For the ones joining us on the other channels, feel free to write into the comments. And yeah, the two questions that we have is, did you ever work on a product that failed? Yes or no? Or what do you, and the second question is, what do you think causes products to fail? Which is a multiple choice question. It could be poor market fit, or do you think it's disregarding or misinterpreting data, failing to update and keep up with user demands, or is it something else? So give you a few minutes to give your answers, and then let's see what comes out of it. For me, I'll just answer the first question. I've actually never worked on a product that failed, which, I mean, it's never nice to fail, but I kind of like to, because I think it's a very good learning opportunity to work on a product that fails. I think I would learn quite a lot from that. So hopefully somewhere in the future, I will work on a product that fails and learn a lot. But until now, I've never had the opportunity. And yeah, let's see what comes out of it. So let's see what we have. Actually, the majority is not like me. The majority of the members on Zoom, at least, have worked on a product that failed, 73%. And the main reason is considered product market fit or poor market fit, but also disregarding data or failing to keep up with user demand. So 70% says poor market fit, and then it's about 1/3 the other two topics. Yeah, I don't have the numbers for the other channels right now, so maybe we can get back to that a little bit later in the chat. Seems like I have a small technical issue with the connection there. But that being said, let's get going with Jim's talk today. So Jim Anderson, handing over to you. Please take the floor.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right. Well, thank you very, very much for joining me this evening. I greatly appreciate you taking time out of your day to come to this particular presentation. Once again, I am Jim Anderson, and it was interesting because I was thinking about the poll that Pim just did, and I sort of realized, you know, I've actually been in charge of a number of products that have failed, and I feel a little bad about being able to indicate that it's more than one. But in my own defense, I've spent a great deal of my career working for startups. And so in my case, when the product fails, more often than not, the company fails also. But that's something we can talk about later on. So what we'll be talking about this evening is product failure lessons for product managers. All right, sounds like an interesting topic, okay? We all want our products to be a success, but I think we also always understand that there is a possibility that any product can fail. All right, if we're going to have a presentation, we should have some goals for it. So let's agree on what our goals for this particular presentation are going to be. So right off the bat, my first goal is I want you to make you feel good about your product. Hopefully your product's not failing. So if we can spend some time talking about products that did fail, my hope is that you'll come away from this presentation feeling better about your product. I also want to take an opportunity to remind you that products do fail, and when they fail for many different reasons. There's no magic single reason why a particular product's going to fail. There's lots of different reasons that can contribute to a product's failure. I want you to understand why products fail. All right. And products don't fail magically overnight. They slowly fail. So as product managers, if we understand why they fail, we can see it when it's coming. I'd also like to encourage you to ask more questions about your product. If you understand how other products have failed in the past, then maybe I can equip you with questions to ask about your product as it is today. And the answers to those questions might help you to make your product even better. And finally, I want to motivate you to prevent your product from failing. If we talk about other products and if we talk about why they failed, then maybe I can open your eyes and make sure that you're aware of what you got to make sure does not happen to your product. All right, sounds like a good set of goals. Let's get started with the presentation. So we're going to start today's presentation off with a quick discussion about EMC. And we all know EMC, they make computers, right? Christmas is an important time of year for every retailer. The sales that occur during this time generally account for somewhere between about 30 and 50% of Dell's annual consumer PC revenue. Now, back in the day, okay, one Christmas, Dell was planning on introducing an ambitious MP3 player. They'd gone way back, a long time ago. Back in 2007, Dell had bought a company called Zing in order to get access to their entertainment software. However, Dell then decided not to launch this product before the holidays. The result of that was that the folks who would have bought this product ended up going out and buying iPods and maybe, oh, and I'm dating myself here, Zunes. Now, the Dell product managers weren't just falling down on the cutting edge new product area. They also seem to be dropping the ball in their bread and butter areas, such as notebooks. In this particular season, Dell ended up only releasing 2 netbooks, which are basically low-end laptops, good for web surfing, emails, stuff like that, and a few new paint schemes for some of their existing notebooks. Now, Apple had just cranked out that very cool all-aluminum MacBook, and even Acer, which generally makes lower-end PCs, had released a bunch of new notebook computers that had fancy styling and, wait for it, built-in access to 3G networks. Okay. It sure looked like the new product pipeline, which is the lifeblood of Dell's consumer division, had what we like to call a friction problem. Simply enough, products were not traveling through it quickly enough. A product manager can't fix a problem like this by his or herself. Okay. However, it is our responsibility to get the various folks who can fix it together in order to get it solved. Since this product had existed since probably back to the start of the school year, clearly at Dell, there was a lingering sense of a lack of momentum. So what should the Dell product managers have been doing? Well, they needed to start with a calendar in order to determine when they needed to have new products available to order in order to match up with their customers' buying cycles. Once they had this, then they needed to start with the finished product and work backwards. All right, enough with Dell. Let's talk about a 93,285 euro mistake. Okay, it turns out that there was a very ordinary bank customer in Norway who used the internet to do most of her banking. Okay, one day she wanted to transfer a large sum of money. In my dollars, it was about 100,000 US dollars to her daughter. Okay? When she keyed in the daughter's account number during the transfer, she accidentally keyed in one digit too many. Now, this mistake resulted in the money being sent to an unknown third party who clearly decided that they had won the lottery. This third party promptly proceeded to gamble away much of the money before the police were able to step in and confiscate the remaining part. Obviously, internet banking had a lot more risk to it than people thought. Now, in this case, clearly the end user was wrong, okay? She entered too many digits. Before pressing enter, she could have corrected her error. At the same time, the system also could have caught and corrected her error. This didn't happen, okay? The team that built the system had not put such checks into the design. So specific details about how this particular error occurred, I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to see it on your screen. She obviously accidentally keyed in one too many digit. The account number, and I apologize, I'm not sure if you're able to see it, was 7158-155-5022. And of course, the user entered 7158-1555, one extra 5022. Now, the standard length of a Norwegian account number is only 11 digits. So the incorrectly account number was truncated. Now, to make things even more amazing, the last digit in a bank account in Norway is a modulo 11 calculated number that should catch single key typing errors and cases in which two numbers have been interchanged. However, as with such things, there was an unlucky coincidence that the number that the lady typed in was a valid account number. So clearly, the end user was upset about what had happened. She took her case to the Norwegian Complaints Board for Consumers and Banking. She ended up losing her case. They said that she made the error and had to take responsibility for it. She decided to appeal. Now, she claims that since she typed in 12 digits, it was the responsibility of the system to give her an error message instead of just dropping all those digits after the 11th. How our customers interact with our product is, if not the most important part, then at least one of the most important parts of any product. It sure seems like it's a requirement that we have to have an interface that operates correctly and in a manner that won't harm our customers. Boom. All right. So let's talk about New Coke. And in my country, North America, New Coke is a classic story that every product manager talks about. The Coca-Cola company had a problem back in the early 1980s. People were telling Coke that they liked the sweeter taste of Pepsi better than the taste of Coke. Now, being a careful company that didn't like to rush into anything, Coke spent the years from 1981 to 1984 taste testing both a new and the old formula of Coke. Now, they ended up doing this over 200,000 times in 25 different cities. The results of the taste test were very clear to Coke's product managers. 55% of the people tested preferred the taste of new Coke over the old formula. Now, you might think that people made this selection because they didn't know what they were drinking. However, the product managers at Coke thought of this also. In the taste test that they performed, where the person knew which sample was new Coke and which one was the old formula, people's preference for new Coke shot up by an additional 6%. So, on April 23rd of 1985, Coke announced that they were going to stop making Coke using the old formula and from then on, only make new Coke. Boom. The world blew up overnight, at least in terms of Coke drinkers. People overwhelmed Coke's customer support phone lines by calling in to complain. They filed lawsuits to stop the switchover, and they said they'd never buy Coke again, etc., etc., etc. So clearly, the Coke product managers had made a big mistake. So what did Coke do wrong here? Well, it's actually pretty simple. They forgot about the scarcity principle. During those taste tests where people knew which sample was new Coke and which one was the old formula, they also knew that they couldn't get new Coke at that time. And so they naturally showed a stronger preference for what they couldn't have. Now, Coke probably thought that the 6% increase in desire for new Coke when people knew which the sample was meant that customers had a higher desire for something new. However, they were wrong. When Coke replaced the old formula with new Coke, what happened is that people's desire for the old formula shot up because it was now the thing that they could no longer have. And that's what caused the riots. One of the best supported findings in social science is that customers are more sensitive to possible losses than to possible gains. In this case, when Coke announced that they were going to stop making old formula Coke, this was much bigger deal to Coke drinkers than the general availability of new Coke. Product managers spend a lot of time listing out all of the benefits of their new products in the hopes of capturing new customers or getting existing customers to trade up. We all need to learn from the story of new Coke that sometimes our customers may have become so attached to our existing product that the possibility of losing their existing product far outweighs the benefits of our new product. Pepsi fumbles a Gatorade makeover. Lessons for a product manager. So Pepsi's Gatorade story starts back in 2001 when Pepsi paid $13.8 billion to buy Quaker Oats and got Gatorade as part of the deal. Now, Gatorade has gone on to become Pepsi's second biggest selling beverage by volume after Pepsi and is a key driver of Pepsi's North American profits. Gatorade currently has about a 75% share of the sports drink market. Now, however, this market segment is starting to become under pressure as a host of new competitors have shown up. And these competitors include teas, juices, and enhanced brands of water. Gatorade has started to lose market share due to increased competition, and sales are starting to slide. Clearly, something needs to be done. What Pepsi decided to do was to rebrand their product in order to attract new customers. Now, they did this by simplifying the product label to just the letter G. They rolled out a complete marketing campaign to TV, print, and online outlets and asked the question, what is G? Perhaps a better question is, what didn't go wrong? After the product makeover, customers complained that they were confused by the Gatorade G campaign. What Pepsi had done was to replace the Gatorade product name on the bottle with a big G. And at the same time, they'd shrunk the distinctive lightning bolt's size. Now, it's pretty clear what Pepsi was trying to do here was to make Gatorade cool once again. However, it's also pretty clear that they made a mistake. Pepsi did the worst thing that you can do to a brand. They confused their customers. Somehow, Pepsi product managers lost touch with their customers and got caught up in too many internal meetings where they convinced themselves that they knew what their customers wanted. Somebody at Pepsi needed to take a step back and stop their rebranding madness. What was missing from the Gatorade campaign was a true reason for the makeover. The core audience for Gatorade still remains the same: athletes who are hot. The Pepsi product managers needed to spend their time finding ways to once again make Gatorade be the brand that gets chosen at the right time. Well, I think I got one more for you. This one's going on right now. The Peloton product managers tried to figure out what they did wrong. All right, let's talk about this one. So at one point in time, being a Peloton product manager must have felt like having the best job in the world. It seemed like everyone had fallen in love with the pricey stationary bike and the video subscription service. The product was literally flying off the shelves. Going into last year, Peloton was racing to keep up with orders. Less than a year later, the Peloton product managers have slashed the price of their bikes. The reason for this was Americans' return to normalcy as the COVID-19 pandemic cases waned. Since then, the company has implemented a hiring freeze amid their widening losses. Now, Peloton's management's view was that there was a paradigm shifting occurring during the pandemic, in which most people would continue to favor home workouts once the pandemic was over. Consumer surveys showed the opposite. It turns out it was a false narrative. People really did want to return to the gym. Now, the product managers realized that mistakes had been made. They both over and estimated the demand for their product at different times. And the product managers are now rolling out deals to fend off rivals who were almost non-existent about 2 years ago. So where do things currently stand for the Peloton product managers? Well, they've got more than 2.5 million paid subscribers, which is more than triple their base before the pandemic. And a lot of those people are actually investors in the company also. The product managers have rolled out new products and expanded beyond the US. The good news is that subscribers continue to flock to their online classes. Okay. When the pandemic hit, demand exploded. The Peloton product managers had to juggle to keep bikes and treadmills in stocks while managing their live studios and more than 100 retail locations in both North America and Europe. However, soon their customers were complaining about too long wait times and missed deliveries, even as Peloton continued to advertise in search of new orders. Now, they've lowered the price of their original stationary bike by 20%. Even worse, they had a marketing plug on the TV show Sex and the City, but unfortunately, the character who used the Peloton bike ended up dying. And so it wasn't really a good way to advertise their product. They understand that they've got some work to do, and they're hoping to get back onto the right side of the line. All right. As product managers, we need new product flop insurance, okay? Back in 2003, 34,000 new products were introduced and 90% of them failed. In 2008, 122,743 new products were introduced and the failure rate was about 80%, okay? So these odds don't look so good for your next product introduction. As any product manager who has spent any time working for a large firm knows, there's no shortage of tools available to help product managers plan for the introduction of a new product. However, it turns out that most of these tools no longer work correctly. The problem has been caused by the simple fact that things have changed a lot. Most of the tools that are currently available to product managers are based on the assumption that what's happened in the past can be used to predict what will happen in the future. Now, most of the markets that we design new products for are moving so quickly, these assumptions are really no longer valid. There is an approach to launching new products called discovery-driven growth. Now, this approach is basically a plan for learning more as the design launch process moves forward. The part that I like about this way of doing things is that it doesn't require the product manager to have a lot of analytical information at the start of the launch process. In my opinion, that's probably a pretty good idea because generally there isn't a lot of information available. So we have to ask ourselves, why do product launches fail? And it turns out that product managers tend to do two things wrong, and these two things conspire to cause them to fail. The first is that they start out with untested assumptions and then use them as facts on which they build their launch plans. The second thing that they do wrong is that they build a false reality that blocks out the truth. They build products and then second generation products, even as they launch advertising programs and invest a great deal in expensive marketing. They do so much work that it all seems to turn and become real to them, when in fact, everything's based on some bad guesses about what the market really wanted. So what should we do? What we should do is start any launch process by writing down what our assumptions are as we're creating our business plan. And the reason we want to do that is because over time, we're going to forget what our assumptions are. The next thing we have to do is identify the milestones that you'll be reaching as you get closer and closer to launching your new product. Once the milestones are known, you need to determine which of your assumptions you'll revisit at that milestone in order to determine if they're still valid. The ultimate goal of this is to spot when any assumptions are found to no longer be valid as early in the process as possible. Now, let's understand, you may end up killing the new product, but at the same time, you'll end up saving your company a lot of money. All right, so we covered a number of product failures. There are more product failures in a book that I've written called Product Failure Lessons for Product Managers, example of products that have failed, okay? It's available via Amazon, as everything is, and there's information on it. If you care to have any information on it, it's available to everybody. Let me leave you with some final words. It's from the forge of failure that the steel of success is formed. And remember, hard work does not guarantee our success, but our success will not happen without hard work. All right, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate your time today. Let me go back here. Boop. And stop sharing.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim, for the stories and the lessons. I've heard about the Coca-Cola one before. It was part of my studies. It's always funny to just listen to that one. But yeah, awesome. Super interesting. And I think the audience will have a lot of questions. So it's time for a little Q&A now. So for everyone on the Zoom or YouTube or any other of the channels, feel free to write your questions in the chat. I'll give you a few minutes for that, and then we'll get back to them in a second. And in the meantime, I will talk a little bit about product people and the use cases. So as I mentioned before, our mission is to deliver great products faster. And how we do it is help companies we work with by providing interim product managers. So that might be that you're in hypergrowth. It might be that you have somebody who went on parental leave. You have some positions that you need to cover, and then we come in on board fast, get our hands dirty, and help you out. Alternative, or another thing we can help you with is a product coach or consultancy. Coach you if your team needs help to reach the next level, to see where we can help them up their game on discovery, delivery, or any of the other areas around product. We can also help you create and streamline your processes, looking at your Scrum rituals, for example, those kind of things. Then product discovery lead is the last thing where we've helped out in the past, and we can help out there as well. So that either means run a low or no code pilot or an MVP. So that's very quickly ideate and iterate around a simple solution to test a value proposition. Without investing a lot of time to build actually a product. and the other one is to discover the next impactful initiative. So that's focusing on marketing user research, but also things like business validation, technical feasibility, and usability would be part of that. We've done this with a few clients you see in the bottom, like Zalando, Omio, Freeletics, Scout24, and here. Yeah, so that's a little bit about us. If you're interested, reach out to me or just visit our website, and we're more than happy to help you there. We've gotten pretty good feedback from our clients. I think pretty good might be understating it. I won't go to too many details here. If you're interested in reading them, pause the YouTube stream a little bit later on. But yeah, it's been a pleasure to work with all these clients. And we are growing as well. So here's an overview of our team right now. And I think the one consistent thing you can see here is that we are a super diverse team, both in nationality and in location. So we're completely distributed, remote first. Originally, the company is based in Berlin. I am based in Stockholm, for example. We have people based in Barcelona, Berlin, Egypt, Cairo, for example, and other places. And we're also still growing and looking for new people to join our growing family. So yeah, we're hiring product managers on all levels. Either an associate if you want to learn product under the guidance of a experienced product manager, or if you're a senior product manager and you're looking into discovering and working in different industries, there's something for all of us, or for all of you. So if you're interested in any of the positions that are open, just go and check out boards.eu.greenhouse.io/product people. And with that being said, I think it's time to stop talking for me and to go back to the Q&A. So let's see if we have any questions already. Cool. So I think some people might be writing questions in the Zoom chat. I have no access to the YouTube, so I will get some help on that in a second. But I think, Jim, maybe one question I have for you. What was the biggest product failure you've been part of, and what was the biggest lesson you got out of that?
Oh, well, ouch. Okay, so that's sort of personal. No problems. So probably the biggest product failure that I've been involved with, I had gone to work for a startup company that was making, of all things, electrical outlets. Now, these were very, very special electrical outlets. They were basically making a series of electrical outlets that you would use in a data center to power computers, right? And so this was, you could plug your computer into it, and it was a smart electrical outlet. It would monitor how much power was being used. It also had the ability to, you could plug sensors into it. And so that electrical outlet could monitor whether or not there was water, whether or not there was smoke, whether or not there was a fire. There was all sorts of data that it could collect and send back to a central location. It was a great product because it turns out in today's data centers, they pretty much plug their computers in and they walk away, and they don't have any monitoring information on the computers themselves. So the product was a great product. It was very exciting. The startup was a great time. Really had a good time there. And the product failed. It was a good product, no problems with that whatsoever. What happened was our competition saw us coming, and they ended up cutting their product prices in half, which meant that there was no possible way we could financially compete with the competition that was in the market. And so the company ended up folding and having to go out of business. It wasn't really the product's problem, but it was, I guess, the product's price that turned out to be the problem in that particular case. So that's at least one of the products that I've been in charge of that ended up not being a success.
Thanks for sharing, and I'm sorry for starting off with such a personal question.
It's okay.
That's super interesting also to see that, it's not always the product, it might be the environment that leads to failure, and you need to be careful with that. So we got a question on YouTube from Lisa Maria Ortega. So she's asking, which consumer research methods do you use and recommend for other product managers to validate their assumptions and improve the success of their product launches?
Well, obviously there's a lot of different ways to do it. I think the most important recommendation I have for product managers is that if you are having consumer research done for your particular product, I think it's very important for product managers to be involved in the process. I think, unfortunately, it's too easy for us to sit back, have a firm go off, collect data, come back with results, and present those results to us. And if you're not involved, you may just take those results and say, okay, this is it, and go ahead and apply it to your product. I think you have to be involved in the process. You have to see the questions that are being asked. You have to see the answers that are coming back, because it's always possible that the people who are collecting the data don't fully understand your product and don't fully understand what problems you're trying to solve with your product. So if they collect bad data and give you results based on bad data, you may end up making bad selections. So really, there's countless companies out there that do that type of work, and a lot of them are very, very good at what they do. But I think as product managers, we have a responsibility to be involved in the process to make sure that the right questions are being answered, being asked, and that the answers are being processed correctly, because nobody knows our product better than we do.
Okay, so a follow-up question I have from that would be, how much, for example, statistics or qualitative research methodology does a product manager need to actually get into the discovery and research part of these things? So how much background information and knowledge do you need to have as a product manager?
It's an excellent question. It depends on how committed to the product your company is. So if your company has decided this is it, they're going to commit themselves fully to the product, you need a fair amount of background research, right? You had better make sure that you're making the right product for the right customers at the right time. However, if your company has other products that are providing revenue for the company, and this is a new product, it's something they're considering rolling out, okay? You've got an interesting opportunity. You can actually create a minimal product, a product that does what the new product's going to do, but it doesn't have to have all the bells and all the whistles and all the fancy stuff. You can create that, and then you can approach your customers with it, and you can say, hey, look, it's a new product we made. Are you interested? And if you can do something like that, you'll get the best feedback possible, because if they can actually touch and feel what you're planning on selling to them, they'll give you direct responses and say, yes, we've been waiting for that product. Where has it been? Or no, thanks for showing it to me. I have no interest in that whatsoever. And in those cases, you obviously don't have to do a lot of customer research. If you can actually show up with a minimal viable product and actually show it to customers and have them give you direct feedback. If your company's going to do a full commitment to it before having a product to actually show to the customers, then yes, you probably have to do a fully extensive customer research study. Does that answer your question, Pim?
Yeah, it does. And basically, do your homework if the company is super serious around it. For simplifying, but definitely thank you for answering it. We got one question from Omer on LinkedIn, and he's asking how to handle or communicate product failure, which I think is actually super interesting, because we fail, that happens, but then we need to inform the rest of the world that we failed. How to do that?
Gotcha. Well, and that's always a little bit of a challenge, right? Nobody, including myself, likes to admit that they've failed, right? But what's interesting about this is that this is actually a very unique opportunity that's presented to product managers to really gain some connection with your customer, right? So your customer just views you as the person who provides them with products. Thank you very much. Talk to you later. Bye-bye, right? But if you're providing them with a product, and then if that product fails, you have an opportunity to really form a much closer relationship with them if you come to them and say, hey, I made a mistake. My customers are telling me that the product that I'm providing, and perhaps the one that you bought, is not the product that they want right now. And because of that, I'm going to stop selling it to new customers. I'll provide you with the support that I agreed, warranty and all that sort of stuff like that. No questions about it whatsoever. But we're not going to be selling any more of this, and you won't get any more marketing for the next version of this particular product. And so I just want to let you know that our customers have spoken. We've heard what they've said, and we've decided to stop marketing this product. But we really appreciate you purchasing it, and we hope that it solves problems for you. If you do that, all of a sudden your customer is going to look at you differently, because they suddenly start to understand that you're being honest with them, you're being direct with them, and they don't get that from most of the people that they buy products from, which means that if you approach this customer again in the future with a different product, they're probably going to be open to purchasing that product from you. You have sort of a ready-made customer set for whatever your next product turns out to be.
Okay. So failure can be an opportunity to actually build a relationship. Yeah. Okay. Reminds me, Dutch expression, shared pain is half pain.
That's right.
So maybe a little follow-up from my side on that. So you talked about communicating failure to the customer, the user. How about internally? How about we build a product, it's failing or it failed, and now we need to go to management and tell them, hey, the bet we made didn't really turn out the way we wanted it.
Right.
How to handle that?
Well, that's always, it's a challenge. There's no question about that whatsoever. The key thing on that, if you have to go internally and explain to people that a company initiative, a product has not been successful, you need two things. First off, you need supporting evidence. So you're making this statement, hey, this product's not going to be successful. Why are you making that statement? What is it based on, like last month's sales? Is it based on what customers are telling you? Is it, customer support feedback that you're getting where they're saying, yeah, no, this isn't what I want, whatever. But you need to come to the table with an understanding of why you're saying that. And then you have to have a very clear statement about what you think the customer should do, what the company should do next. Right? Are you suggesting that the product be shut down? Okay, that's true. Or are you suggesting that maybe the company should start to ramp down or decrease the number of products, units that are being sold? What's your actual specific recommendation? The worst thing that you could possibly do is show up to your management and say, product's not being successful, and then just stand there. Because now you've put the burden of making a decision as to what to do onto them, and nobody appreciates that. So if you can show up with the facts that justify why you're making the statement, and show up with a proposed plan as to what the company can do to extract itself or get itself out of the current situation that it's in, then that's probably the best thing that you can do as a product manager internally when you have a product that's in the midst of failing.
So don't cry wolf, make sure you have a plan.
True.
Okay, nice. Thanks for sharing. Marv, I see your hand is raised. If you have a question, feel free to ask it.
Not if Marv stays on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. No, I was, the whole thing was on mute. Okay, my bad. My question, I always hear in a variety of forums, LinkedIn, and basically almost everywhere, people always quote the Apple way, right? So they don't, if somebody discusses research or, like analyzing things before launch, even agile, all this stuff, people that are critical of it kind of back up their claims and say, well, look at Apple, look at what they did. And I have some, thoughts about this. I'm not too fond of that answer, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts on that is. And, because Apple is an outlier in a lot of the things that they do and how they function. But, you highlighted, different methodologies of doing research and how important is quantitative analysis and all that stuff. So what are your thoughts on that?
So Marv, what do you think Apple does? Just to be real clear.
I mean, you mean as a company or,
right.
or
when they're getting ready to do a product, what do you think they do? Lots and lots of research or no research whatsoever? Is it because people don't know what they want? Is that the gist?
Yeah, I mean that's what they claim. I'm not saying that that's in like what they do, but that's what people all over the internet claim.
I fully understand. And I disagree with that. So look, come on now. So Apple is staffed with a lot of really smart people. No question about that whatsoever. Apple also has very, very deep pockets. They've got a lot of money, right?
Mhm.
And when Apple decides to do something like, for example, an Apple Watch, we'll just say sort of an outlier product, right? It's not their core product or anything like that, but it is a new product and stuff like that. I think it's pretty clear that they spend a great deal of time trying to determine what the impact of their new product is going to be. I do not believe that they just decide, wow, a watch would be a great thing to do. Let's go ahead and do it. No way. Okay. I think they spend a great deal of time looking at the market, looking at other products, trying to figure out how people would respond if they had it and stuff like that. Whether or not they actually do studies with people and watches and stuff like that, that's sort of an internal Apple sort of thing. But I believe that Apple's probably more like other companies than a lot of people realize. Okay. They're bright, smart people. They're not going to introduce a new product on a whim. Okay. Or just because they think it's the right thing to do. They will do all the standard product management things that all of us will evaluate the market, determine the pricing, determine feature availability, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I view Apple as being more like us than being different from us. Congratulations to the guys at Apple, because they have built, as you point out, Marv, a myth around them, where everyone's like, wow, they just know what we want before we want it. I don't think so. I think there's a lot of bright, smart people at Apple who are spending a lot of time trying to figure out what we want next and asking us and doing research and doing studies and all sorts of stuff like that. So I think it's a little bit more in line with the way everybody else does it.
I agree with that. Maybe just one more note on that, and then I'll give the mic to whoever's next. But then what's your take on the quote? I'm not sure how it goes, but something like people don't really know what they want. Sometimes you need to show them. So Apple has been infamous of launching products that people hate and then suddenly use.
Right.
So, so I'm sure that if they did this market, like having the users explore it or maybe give feedback and all this stuff, the users would say, nah, this thing sucks. We don't want it, blah, 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 So what's your take on that quote where, Steve Jobs was, I think, I'm not sure if that was misquoted, but yeah.
No, well, it's interesting though, because, Marv, I'm thinking back to probably like the iPhone, which is where I think that quote actually came from and stuff like that. When the iPhone came out, it wasn't the first mobile phone. I mean, we all had mobile phones, right? We were all using it. And Marvin, I apologize because I don't think I'm wrong on this. I think we were even texting back in the day, right?
So, yeah, we were. Yeah,
right.
And there were even smartphones with like semi-smart screens, but nothing like the iPhone.
Right. And I'll grant you, iPhone was, breakthrough, revolutionary product, all that stuff like that. But, if you take a real close look at what was available back in the day, it wasn't that big of a leap. Yeah, they pulled together disparate things that were in different products, and they brought it into their one product. Hats off to them. Congratulations. But people were already using their phones to interact and to do stuff like that. And they sort of took it to the next level, right? So when you say, well, people don't know what they want, well, we sort of do. We were already using our phones as sort of like a key communication thing, and they just made it easier for us to do. And Marv, if we just take it up one more notch, Tesla, the guys who make the electric car, I mean, I would say arguably they were in the same situation back in the day. Hey, let's go ahead and make an electric car. Oh yeah, no, that sounds like a great idea. What do you have to do? Plug it in at night? And by the way, there's no charging stations anywhere. Yeah, that product's not going to fly. I don't see that as being popular, but yet it was, right? And yeah, no, you and I didn't know we wanted an electric car, but they were smart enough to realize that if they did it, sort of like the market would come along with them. So hats off to them on that one. So arguably, I think that, we create a myth around products that are very, very successful and say, wow, they, what dreamers, they came up with that. But I think if we go back in time to when those products get introduced and we look around, I think we would discover that probably the things that led to that product being created were all there. Hats off to the visionaries who were able to pull the things together and create the product that was revolutionary. But I think if we took a close look, we'd see that, yeah, a lot of the things that went into it were already available. They just did a good job of pulling it together.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark, for asking a very interesting question. Bruno, I see that you have a question. You're also on Zoom. If you like to ask it in person, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask it.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for bringing that up. So my question is actually related with the difference between handling failure in software and hardware. I think those are two different worlds, so I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, let's take it up as another level, software and hardware, right? So we can roll it all up into one particular product. Well, it's, you bring up an interesting point, Bruno. So if I have a completely software product and it fails, it's pretty easy to walk away from that, right? I don't have any scrap. I don't have any parts. I don't really have any inventory. So I can turn a server off, click, and I'm done with that product, right? Yeah, I got some advertising I got to clean up, but that's it. If I'm creating a hardware product, right, and it fails, I've got a little bit more of a challenge. I've potentially shipped product to customers. Now I have to support that product for a period of time. I have potentially unshipped inventory, and then I probably also have parts that never got put into a completed product. So it becomes more difficult if you have a hardware product that fails. I would say that it's probably harder to cancel a hardware product than it is to cancel a software product because of the ripple. Remember, hardware products are also going to have a potentially fairly extensive supply chain associated with them. And you've entered into agreements with other firms to purchase their products to use in the product that you're making. And if you decide to discontinue making the product, you're going to have to go back to each one of those contracts and basically break them. And there may be financial penalties associated with those and all sorts of interesting things like that. So canceling a hardware product is much more difficult than canceling a software product, okay? But it can be done, right? And you have to sort of, pick and choose. And perhaps even as you're creating the hardware product, you have to consider the fact that you may end up canceling it. Maybe you have to prepare for that possibility as you set up the contracts with your suppliers, as you figure out where you're going to store your supplies, and just make plans that if the product got canceled, how you would actually go about dealing with that.
Awesome, thanks.
Good question.
Just a follow-up on that. I know, for example, on Netflix case, they canceled the hardware project they have, and that turned out to be a great deal for them because, after all, the current model they have right now works much better. But I don't see that many cases where a company that canceled the hardware product actually succeeded afterwards. Mm-hmm. Do you have any other examples that you know and don't share?
So which Netflix project were they canceling, sir?
I think it was like a box they have with content. I think that canceled project and the team that worked on that project actually led to Roku. I don't think I I don't think I'm mixing things up, but maybe I'm saying something that isn't real. But
no,
yeah.
Well, I know Roku has actually been really, really successful. So yeah, no, that's actually good stuff. Well, it's interesting, and Bruno, you bring up an excellent point. So I mean, I think the takeaway from that one, of course, is that if a product fails or a product gets canceled, in either case, as product managers, I think we have an obligation to learn from that example, okay? So we went into building or creating the product with hopes and dreams and plans. We thought we understood our customer. We thought we understood what their desire was and what their ability to pay was and stuff like that. And something went wrong, right? Something didn't line up for whatever reason. And the product, for same reasons, was not a success. And then that leaves us as a product manager. We've had an experience. We were part of a product, part of a team, and it didn't work out. And so I think it's important for us to take that experience onto our next project, right? We'll go into our next product with hopes and dreams and plans. We'll have a customer, we'll have a product we're creating. We'll say, look, we've got it right. But the question, hopefully that's in the back of our mind is, wow, this feels very familiar. I've done this before, but it didn't work out last time. Why didn't it work out last time? And how can I apply that lesson to what I'm in the process of doing now? So I don't have any really good examples of, firms that made a product, failed, and then went on and were successful. Although I think there are actually a number of those. But probably what's more important to me is product managers that have failed, that then go on and are in charge of successful products. I think it's entirely possible to do that. We just have to have the ability to learn from the lessons that we've had in the past.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bruno, for asking. Cool. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. So I see one from George, also on a Zoom call. Again, if you'd like to ask it in person, feel free to do so.
Sure thing, yeah. So just adding to the conversation with Bruno, prior to that, I can't think of any examples of companies who actually failed and then went to succeed afterwards. But I think there are cases sort of in between, and Slack's an example of those, for example, which isn't really companies that failed on their product and then went to succeed. They actually failed on their product and found a way to reap benefit from something they did during the product development stage, which was their communication service, and they actually leaped towards making something totally different. So in a sense, I see that there are quite a few that actually failed, but managed to pivot towards something else, which is really interesting. Getting to my question. So this one's once going back in time, related to consumer research. I'll read it out. So when you carry out consumer research for an existing product, do you focus primarily on existing consumers? So let's say people who are already affiliated with a brand, what you can call brand champions, or do you focus primarily on potential customers? If this is a sort of depends answer, I'd like to know how it depends. So in which cases you'd lean more towards one or the other.
Gotcha. So George, no, actually, that one's actually a pretty easy question to answer. So congratulations, you have an existing customer base. Yay, you've done well. So you create a brand new product. Bam, okay, got a new product. Question, who do you want to sell that new product to? Are you going to try to upsell your existing customers, or are you going to try to sell to new customers? Wrong way to say it. Here at Mercedes, we made our E-Class sedan. Well, we've got a whole bunch of C-Class sedan owners. Am I going to take my E-Class and go out and talk to the C-Class sedan owners and try to get them to upgrade or uptrade to an E-Class? Or am I going to say, I already got those C guys. I want to go out and get a brand new customer base who are going to appreciate all the benefits of the E-Class Mercedes sedan. You got to make your decision. And arguably, what I think most of us do is we sort of split it down the middle, right? If we come up with a version 2.0 of our product, I think we target both our existing customers, and then we also say this is an opportunity for us to grow our customer base. So we look beyond our existing customers. I would actually say you probably have a better chance of upselling your existing customers. They already know you. They've already said, we like your product. Okay, so that's two successes in your court. And now you're going to try and come along and get them to buy the better version of your product. Okay, you have a good chance of success with that. Going to people who have never bought your product and trying to get them to buy the new version, it can be done, but there's more of a challenge there. So if I was a product manager and created a version 2.0, I would definitely focus initially on all my existing customers and try to upsell them. I would probably also go to new customers also, but my focus would probably be on my existing customers because I've got the best chance of success with them.
Yeah, makes sense. Customer retention's cheaper usually than customer acquisition.
Exactly.
So yeah. All right. Thank you for that.
Thanks, George, for asking. I actually would have gambled on new customer segments, but okay, I guess I was wrong. I would have failed in that case. Good lesson. So I think last question from Adam on YouTube. What product strategy framework would you point out as the most effective and universal for software products? And maybe stealing a little bit from George, if there's not one universal one, maybe 2 or 3 that you could share, some strategy framework that you find relevant and valuable.
That's an interesting phrase, product strategy framework. That's sort of 3 big words sort of tied together. So it brings up an interesting point. So for a software product, okay, so no problems with that whatsoever. So, well, let's think about what it takes to introduce a brand new software product, right? So first off, of course, you have to identify a customer base. You have to identify a problem that customer's base is having. You have to identify that the problem is not currently being solved by anybody else. You then need to, of course, create your product, your software product in this particular case. And once you've done that, it seems as though it would be the right thing to approach your customer with the product that you've created and have them evaluate it for you. And it's pretty easy to do that if you're just talking about a software product, right? And say, hey, listen, I've created this new product. I believe it addresses a problem you have. Would you agree? And have the customer use it, implement it, determine if it actually does solve the problem. Obviously get their feedback, because it's a software product, it's pretty easy to make changes to the product. But with your alpha set of customers providing you with that direct feedback, you can either confirm or deny that there's a market, that there's a need, and that customers are willing to actually implement your product. Also, if you get those customers to implement it, you also now have a unique source of information about pricing, right? If they've implemented it, if they're thrilled and pleased with it, you can have a pricing discussion with those customers and say, hey, it seems like you like my product. It seems like you're using my product. Can you give me information on like how your life has changed since you started using my product? Have you, has your delivery time gone down? Has your employee retention gone up? Has your product defects decreased? Can you give me quantitative information about how operation of your company has changed by using my product? And then all of a sudden you've got the information that you need to start to do some very, very concrete pricing that'll allow you to get it out. So I guess going back to the original question, like frameworks, I think in terms of a software product, starting with an alpha set of customers who implement and use the product and give you direct feedback is the correct way to go, because it's easy to do. It'll provide you with the information that you need and gives you great information when it comes to pricing your product and making sure that it lines up with what your customers' expectations are.
You start, if I get it right, like a small prototype. Could it even be kind of like some usability Figma files, something like that, to get us some feedback? Okay.
Yes.
Scale from there, get some feedback early on, get talking to people, and that's it. Off you go.
Right.
Awesome. Oh, Jim, thanks for sharing all your wisdom. Thanks for the presentation. I think that's all we have time for today. And for everybody joining us on either Zoom or YouTube, LinkedIn, or the other channels, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any feedback, of course, it's more than welcome in the comments. And yeah, have a nice evening and hope to see you next time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jim, for the talk. Take care.